Charles Bronson, the tough guy from Hollywood, left behind more than just a legacy of iconic movies. He also left behind a fortune that made his family very emotional, but why did his inheritance make them cry instead of smile? Was it the size of his wealth, the way he divided it, or the stories that were hidden within? Stay with us to find out the truth about Bronson's final gift to the people he loved. Charles Bronson was a Pennsylvania coal miner who became a hard-boiled action star, most notably in the popular Death Wish Vengeance movies. Charles Bronson, who was 81 years old when he died, was more than just a Hollywood icon. His career spanned more than 4 decades, and he captivated audiences with his magnetic performances and became synonymous with the tough guy persona. With an impassive face that looked like it had been chiseled from a quarry and a hand always near the trigger of an automatic, Bronson was one of the most iconic tough guys in movie history. After his death at the age of 81, he was remembered for his brooding. Bronson died at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles with his third wife, Kim, by his side. His health had been getting worse quickly after a long battle with Alzheimer's disease. Bronson was born into a working-class family in Pennsylvania and started acting after the war as a way to escape. From the start, he was cast as criminals, outcasts, and gunslingers who didn't have the good looks to be leading men. An Italian newspaper called him Il Brutto, which means the ugly one. He seemed destined to stick to small roles in a trio of movies: The Magnificent Seven, The Great Escape, and The Dirty Dozen, but they still caught people's attention, especially in Europe. Alain Delon invited him to France to co-star in Adieu L'Ami in 1968. And Sergio Leone gave him a role that would define his career in Once Upon a Time in the West. Bronson. He would go hours without speaking. An episode of The Simpsons made fun of him by imagining a town called Bronson, Missouri, whose residents stood menacingly in doorways and broke their silence only to say things like "it ain't over." Michael Whitner called him a very, very good actor, even though he didn't have a wide range. Bronson himself once gave a more sober assessment: "Someday I'd like a part where I can lean my elbow against a mantelpiece and have a cocktail." Unlike other Hollywood stars, Bronson's journey wasn't that easy at all. At age 50, he returned to Hollywood as a star. In an interview in 1971, he talked about why it had taken him so long to get there. "Maybe I'm too masculine. Maybe casting directors cast in their own or an idealized image. Maybe I don't look like anyone's ideal." His early life didn't show any signs of his later fame. He was born Charles Binsky, the 11th of 15 children, to a coal miner and his Lithuanian wife. Growing up, Charles learned how to survive in the tough district of Scooptown, where you had nothing to lose because you lost everything. Already, the Buczynski family lived in a small shack with many other families. The children wore clothes that belonged to older siblings. When Charles was 6, he felt embarrassed to go to school in his sister's dress. Charles's father died when he was 10 years old. When Charles was 16, he followed his brothers into the mines, where he was paid $1 per ton of coal and took on dangerous jobs because the pay was better. Like other toughs in Scooptown, he caused trouble and went to jail for assault and robbery. He might have stayed in the mines for the rest of his life if not for World War II. He was drafted into the U.S. Army Air Corps in 1943 and served in the Pacific as a tail gunner on a B-29. Having seen the world, he vowed never to return to the filth of Scooptown. He became interested in acting, not because he was artistic, but because he saw how much money movie stars could make. He joined the Philadelphia Play and Players Troupe and painted scenery and played a few small roles at the Pasadena Playhouse School. Bronson improved his diction and supported himself by selling Christmas cards and Toys On. Studio scouts saw him at the Playhouse and cast him as a gob in the 1951 service comedy You're in the Navy Now, starring Gary Cooper. Bronson's first leading role was in the exploitation movie Machine Gun Kelly in 1958. He went on to give great performances in The Magnificent Seven, The Great Escape, The Battle of the Bulge, The Sandpiper, and The Dirty Dozen, but he never became a real star because his rough face and rough manner didn't fit the Hollywood style for leading men. His most controversial movie was. In Death Wish, Bronson plays an affluent liberal architect whose life is turned upside down when thugs kill his wife and rape his daughter. He vows to rid the city of these pests, and his executions were cheered by crime-weary audiences. The character's vigilantism was criticized by many, but Death Wish became one of the biggest hits of the year. The controversy grew when Bernard Gutz shot 2 teens he thought were threatening him in a New York subway. Bronson made 3 more Death Wish movies, and in 1987 he defended them. "I think they give people who have been victims of crime and have been waiting for police to protect them some satisfaction, but I don't think people try to copy that kind of thing." Bronson could be as quiet in interviews as he was in movies. He stayed away from Hollywood, as he once said, "I have a lot of friends, but I don't have any." Bronson's family life was a true reflection of his unique and adventurous personality, full of moments that were as strange and exciting as the man himself. When Charles Bronson met Harriet Tendler, he was just starting out in his career. They met through the Plays and Players amateur theater group. When Bronson joined the group, he was interested in painting decorations and scenery. Tendler was Jewish and the daughter of a successful dairy farmer, while Bronson, whose real name was Charlie Binsky, was Catholic and used to work as a coal miner but became interested in acting over time and became closer to Tendler. On their first date, Bronson had only 4 cents in his pocket. 2 years later, with Tendler's reluctant permission, the two got married in 1949 and moved to California to pursue bigger dreams as a couple. Bronson barely had enough to move with because Tendler owned things in 4.5 of the 5 suitcases they moved with. In California, Bronson worked hard to improve his art. He was married to Tendler for 15 years until they divorced in 1965. They had 2 children, Suzanne and Tony, before they split up. When his career was at its peak, he started an affair with Jill Ireland, who was married to David McCallum Brown at the time. Ireland and McCallum Brown later got married in 1968. After NCICI's David McCallum's marriage to Ireland ended, he went through some hard times. It wasn't until 2016 that he talked about how the divorce affected him. Malum said he was in a better place now and didn't even hold a grudge when his ex-wife left him for Bronson. He met Bronson on Great Escape and through their relationship. It was said that Bronson once told Malum on set that he would take his wife from him, but this was just a rumor that lasted for years. When Malum was asked about it, he said, "I never hated him. Charlie was always a good friend." He also said when problems come up, worrying about them and getting anxious and negative is quite unnecessary. Even though Malum was fine with his ex-wife's relationship with Bronson, he did admit that it was a difficult time for them. During that time, he said that he and Ireland had 3 kids together. They adopted 3 kids, with Jason being the oldest. When their marriage ended, Ireland got custody of the kids, which made things harder for Malum Jill Ireland. Like Malum Bronson, Ireland was an actress trying to make it big in the business, but love and romance were always possible. When Bronson and Ireland got married, they had a daughter together. He had 2 kids from his first marriage, and she had 3 kids from her first. Together, they had a daughter named Zula and adopted a daughter named Katrina Holden. Katrina was the daughter of the late casting director Hilary Holden, who died of a sudden heart attack. Bronson seemed like he had a brood and couldn't afford to adopt Katrina, but he did. Ireland often played Bronson's leading lady co-starring in 15 films with him to keep the family close. They would often take all the children to film locations and make that where they were filming. They also liked to hang out at a colonial farmhouse in Vermont. Ireland raised horses and taught their daughter Zula how to compete in horse shows. They also spent the winter in snowy Massachusetts, Colorado. Sadly, Jill Ireland died at their home in Malibu in May 1990 after a long battle with breast cancer. She was first diagnosed in 1986, but the illness came back with a vengeance in 1989. Ireland was 54 years old. In December 1998, Bronson married Kim Weeks, a former actress who worked at Dove Audio and helped make Jill Ireland's album. Bronson and Weeks were married for 5 years before he died. Bronson's life was like a captivating movie full of ups and downs, love, heartbreak, and hard-won victories. He faced countless challenges along his path, but it makes you wonder what he left behind for his family. American actor Charles Bronson had a career that spanned more than 4 decades and was one of the highest-paid actors of his time. He has also made a lot of money by acting in TV shows. At the height of his career, he was thought to be the highest-paid actor in the world. He made as much as $1 million for movies like The Killer and Death Wish. The last time a macho actor made $1 million was in the 1976 movie Say Eyes in 1983. 10 to Midnight made him even more valuable. He made $2 million. In addition to his movie work, Bronson also starred in a number of TV shows, including the Western series He had recurring roles on the police drama Miami Vice and was nominated for an Emmy Award for his work on TV in 1985. Bronson's acting career earned him a total of $50 million. In addition to his acting career, Bronson owned a number of properties, including a home in Malibu, California, and a ranch in Colorado. He also had a number of cars and motorcycles. At the time of his death, Bronson's personal assets were estimated to be worth $20 million. Many celebrities have received expensive gifts from their fans, but one of the nicest fan gifts ever was given to Charles Bronson in 1996. A woman from Louisville decided to leave her entire $300,000 fortune to Bron, her favorite actor, in a handwritten will, as reported by the New York Post. Audrey Neuer died in 1997 at the age of 55, leaving an estate worth $300,000. Surprisingly, it was found that she had willed her entire fortune to Charles Bronson in a handwritten note. She didn't want any of her family members to get any of her money. In her will, she said, "Under no circumstances is my mother Helen to inherit anything from me, blood, body parts, financial assets, etc." Nauer had never met Bronson, but she loved his movies and kept a collection of newspaper clippings that talked about him. She especially liked watching his Death Wish movies and would regularly rent them from the Louisville Free Public Library. After she died, some of her estate went directly to Bronson, but the will said. Later, Nauer's remaining family, led by her sister Nancy Cooper, contested the will. When they saw how much money she was leaving Bronson, they thought she might not have been mentally stable when she wrote it. Instead, Nauer's family presented an earlier document signed and witnessed by Nauer in 1977, which they said should take precedence over the handwritten will. In this earlier document, Nauer ordered that her estate be split between her relatives after she died. She lives in Los Angeles, California, and is currently single. She doesn't talk about her personal life or relationships with other people because she wants to live a quiet life without being watched by the media or the public.